Somewhere in America right now, someone is standing in a dealership parking lot holding two pieces of paper, and they have no idea that one of those pieces of paper is about to cost them thousands of dollars more than the other. Nobody warned them. The finance manager didn't warn them. The shiny brochure didn't warn them. And if you have ever leased or financed a car in your life, there is a good chance nobody warned you either. Here is the sentence that is going to make some car dealers very uncomfortable. The monthly payment on your car is a lie. Not a lie in the sense that the number is fake. The number is real. You will pay it every single month for years. But the monthly payment is designed, engineered, and quietly optimized to hide the real question you should be asking, which is, how much is this car actually going to cost me by the time I am done with it? Leasing versus buying might be the single most controversial debate in all of personal finance. Ask 10 different people and you will get 10 different answers, most of them delivered with the confidence of someone who has never actually run the math. Your uncle swears by leasing because the payment feels lower. Your coworker swears by buying because her dad told her leasing is throwing money away. They cannot both be completely right. And today we are going to find out with real numbers who actually is. Before we go further, I want to give you one number that should stop you in your tracks. The average monthly car payment for a new vehicle in America right now is $729. $729 a month every month for years for a machine that starts losing value the second you drive it off the lot. That number alone should make you want to understand exactly what you're paying for. So that is exactly what we are going to do. By the end of this video, I am going to walk you through the full math, dollar for dollar, on leasing a car versus buying that same car. And I am going to show you which path actually leaves more cash sitting in your pocket at the end of 3 years. And here is what really got me when I first pulled the actual finance documents apart. The gap between these two paths was not a few $100s, it was thousands. Enough to cover a vacation or a serious chunk of an emergency fund just sitting on the table waiting for whichever person understood the math first. Stick with me because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which side of that table you want to be standing on. My name is David Marshall, and I spend an unreasonable amount of my free time pulling apart the financial decisions that most people make on autopilot. Car payments, mortgages, credit card minimums, retirement contributions. The stuff nobody teaches you in school, but everybody is expected to just figure out. I am not a car salesman, and I am not trying to sell you anything. I just think you deserve to see the actual math before you sign anything with your name on it. If that sounds useful to you, do me one favor before we go any further. Hit that subscribe button right now. I put out videos like this every single week, breaking down the real numbers behind decisions that quietly shape your entire financial life, and I would genuinely love to have you along for it. Alright, let's get into it. I want you to picture two people, Jake Bennett and Emily Hart. They are neighbors, same street, houses 2 doors apart. On the exact same Saturday, they both walk into the exact same dealership and both fall in love with the exact same car. A Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, sticker price $31,475. Same car, same color, let's say silver because why not? Same interest rate environment, same dealership, same finance manager smiling at both of them. Jake decides to lease. Emily decides to finance and buy. 3 years later, they are going to end up in two very different financial positions, and almost nobody explains why. So let's follow both of them step by step, and let's start with what actually happens when you lease. When you sign a lease, most people think they are renting the whole car. You are not. You are only paying for one specific slice of that car's life, and understanding that slice is the entire key to this whole video. A lease payment is built from 3 pieces. The first piece is depreciation. This is the big one. Depreciation is simply the amount of value the car is expected to lose during the years you have it. If a car is worth $31,000 today, and the dealership predicts it will only be worth $21,000 in 3 years, you are being asked to pay for that $10,000 drop in value, spread out over your monthly payments. The second piece is the finance charge, sometimes hidden inside something called a money factor. This is essentially interest, dressed up in a different name so it looks less like a loan. The dealership's bank is charging you to use their money, based on current interest rates, exactly like a car loan would. The third piece is taxes and fees, which vary depending on your state, but are baked into almost every lease quote you will ever see. So when Jake sits down to sign his lease on that RAV4 Hybrid, here's what the numbers actually look like. He puts $3,000 down. His monthly payment comes out to $394 a month for 36 months. If you add up that down payment and all 36 payments, Jake will pay a total of $17,184 over those 3 years just to drive that car. Let's call this our ownership scoreboard because we are going to keep updating it as this story moves along. Right now, after 3 years, Jake's side of the scoreboard reads $17,184 spent and $0 in assets to show for it. Now here is the part that catches almost everyone off guard. At the end of those 3 years, Jake has to give the car back, $17,184 spent, and he walks away from that dealership with absolutely nothing to show for it. No car, no equity, no asset, just 3 years of payments that evaporate the moment he hands over the keys. Unless, of course, he decides to buy the car at the end of the lease. Dealerships call this the residual value, which is basically a prediction they made 3 years earlier of what the car would still be worth. For this RAV4 hybrid, the residual value works out to 67% of the original price, which lands at $21,088. So if Jake wants to keep the car he has been driving for 3 years, he now has to pay another $21,088 on top of everything he already paid. Add that to his $17,184 in lease payments, and buying the car at the end of his own lease actually costs him $38,272 total, for a car that started at $31,475. Let that sink in for a second. Jake could end up paying almost $7,000 more than the car's original price just because he leased it first and bought it later. This is exactly the kind of number dealer incentives are designed to hide. The monthly payment feels light and easy. The full picture is anything but. There's also a psychological trap hiding inside leasing that almost nobody talks about. And as someone who studies financial behavior, this is the part that fascinates me most. It is called mileage limit anxiety. Most leases cap you around 12,000 miles a year, and if you go over, you owe extra money for every single mile, sometimes 25 cents or more per mile at the end of the lease. So for 3 straight years, Jake is going to be quietly stressed every time he plans a road trip, glancing at his odometer, wondering if that weekend drive to see family is going to cost him extra later. That stress is real, and it is a cost too, even if it never shows up on a spreadsheet. There is one more number worth knowing before we move on. If Jake ever needs to break his lease early, maybe his job relocates him, maybe his life changes, he could get hit with something called an early termination fee, which can run into thousands of dollars all by itself. Leasing feels flexible on the surface, but the fine print tells a different story. Now let's go check in on Emily. Emily decided to finance and buy the RAV4 hybrid outright, using a 5-year loan at 6% interest. She also put $3,000 down, but her monthly payment is higher than Jake's, coming in at $551 a month for 60 months. Multiply that out and Emily pays $33,060 in payments over 5 years, plus her $3,000 down payment. Here is where it gets interesting though. Unlike Jake, Emily actually owns this car. Every single payment she makes is chipping away at something called principal and interest, and principal is the part that builds her actual ownership stake in the vehicle. She is not renting a slice of depreciation. She is buying the whole asset piece by piece. So let's fast forward 5 years. Emily decides to sell the RAV4. Based on typical depreciation curves for this exact vehicle, crowdsourced car data pulled from real resale listings puts her market resale value at around $24,865. When you run the complete math on Emily's 5-year ownership, including her down payment, every single monthly payment, and then subtracting what she gets back from selling the car, her true out-of-pocket cost for 5 full years of driving comes out to $11,385. Update the scoreboard. Over 5 years, Emily's side reads $11,385 spent, and unlike Jake, that number came with an actual asset attached the entire time she owned the car. Compare that for a second. Jake spent $17,184 over 3 years and has nothing. Emily spent $11,385 over 5 years and still has cash in her pocket from the sale. But I know what you might be thinking. That is not exactly a fair fight because Jake only had the car for 3 years and Emily had hers for 5. So let's fix that. Let's put both of them on the exact same 3-year timeline and see who actually wins. This is the moment where the entire debate gets settled, so pay close attention. Let's say Emily, instead of keeping her RAV4 for 5 years, also gives up the car right at the 3-year mark, same as Jake's lease term, and let's actually model this the way most true buyers would, financing over 3 years to match Jake's timeline exactly. On a 3-year loan, Emily's monthly payment comes out to $866 a month. Over 36 months, that totals $31,176 in payments, plus her $3,000 down payment. Now here is the number that changes everything. At the 3-year mark, based on real-world market resale value for this exact vehicle, Emily can sell her RAV4 Hybrid for $26,126. So let's do the full total cost of car ownership math for Emily. $3,000 down plus $31,176 in payments, minus $26,126 from selling the car. Emily's true total cost for 3 full years of driving that RAV4 Hybrid comes out to $8,050. Now put that side by side with Jake. Jake's total lease cost for the same 3 years, same car, was $17,184. $8,050 versus $17,184. That is not a small gap. That is more than double. Final scoreboard: 3 years, same car, same road, same driveway. Jake, $17,184 gone, nothing left in his hands. Emily, $8,050 spent, and a check in her bank account that Jake never even got the chance to cash. Broken down per year so you can really feel the size of this, leasing costs Jake about $4,049 every single year he has that car. Buying and then reselling costs Emily about $2,684 per year for the exact same car. Same make, same model, same 3 years on the road. And Jake ends those 3 years with nothing in his hands, while Emily ends those 3 years having spent thousands of dollars less and walking away with cash from her own sale. This is why for most people and most cars it is more financially prudent to buy, not because leasing is evil, not because anyone is doing anything illegal, but because the math, when you actually run it all the way through, quietly and consistently favors ownership for a normal, everyday vehicle like this RAV4 Hybrid. Now, before you go cancel every lease you have ever considered, I have to be fair here because this is not a video about telling you leasing is always wrong. There are specific situations where leasing genuinely wins, and if you fall into one of these categories, everything I just said might not apply to you. The first situation is high-maintenance luxury and performance vehicles. Think German sports cars, high-end luxury sedans, anything where a single repair bill could run into the thousands of dollars. When you lease one of these vehicles, you are almost always covered by the manufacturer's warranty for the entire lease term, which means expensive repairs become the dealership's problem, not yours. You drive it, you enjoy it, and when something breaks, you are not the one writing that check. The second situation is business owners. If you use a vehicle for legitimate business purposes, lease payments can often be written off as a business expense, creating real tax advantages that a personal buyer simply does not have access to. These lease write-offs can meaningfully shift the math in favor of leasing, especially for higher-end vehicles used primarily for work. If this applies to you, talk to an actual accountant who knows your specific situation, because the tax code around small business tax write-offs and vehicle deductions is detailed and it changes. Outside of those two situations, though, for a standard, reliable, everyday vehicle like the RAV4 Hybrid we have been tracking this entire video, the math keeps landing in the same place. Buying wins. Now I want to give you something you can actually use the next time you are sitting across from a finance manager, because dealerships count on the fact that most customers have no idea what a fair lease quote even looks like. Here is the crowdsourced forum hack that changes that completely. Before you ever step into a dealership, go online and search automotive consumer forums, sites like Edmunds, where real buyers and even industry insiders openly share the exact money factor and exact residual value percentage for almost every vehicle on the market. These two numbers are the entire backbone of your lease payment, and dealers know that most customers will never think to look them up. Buyers who walk in armed with this crowdsourced car data regularly manage to negotiate their money factor down enough to save several $100s over the life of the lease, simply because the finance manager can tell within 30 seconds that this particular customer already did the homework. Once you know the real money factor and the real residual value percentage for the car you want, you can walk in and quickly tell whether the dealership's quote is fair or whether it has been quietly inflated. Because make no mistake, dealer incentives are designed to hide the real cost of debt, and the less you know going in, the more room there is for that hidden cost to grow. Arm yourself with the real numbers first, and that entire negotiation shifts in your favor before you even sit down. I also want to talk for a moment about why so many smart, financially responsible people still choose to lease, even when the math points the other way, because this is not really a math problem. It is a psychology problem. There is something deeply satisfying about driving a brand new car every 3 years. That new car smell, the latest safety features, never worrying about an old transmission failing on the highway. Part of this comes down to something behavioral economists call pride of ownership. Except in leasing's case, it is almost the opposite, a kind of borrowed pride, the feeling of having something impressive without the long-term commitment. And the monthly payment illusion plays right into that. $394 a month sounds so much more manageable than $17,000 all at once, even though they are describing the exact same financial reality. Our brains are simply wired to underweight the smaller recurring number and overweight the scary lump sum, even when the smaller number repeated for years adds up to something bigger. Understanding that bias alone can save you thousands of dollars over your lifetime, on cars, and on nearly everything else you finance. There's also a status signaling piece to this, one that most people will not admit out loud on camera. Pulling into the office parking lot in a brand new car every 3 years sends a small, quiet signal, even if nobody ever says a word about it. That signal has value to people, real emotional value, and I am not here to tell you that value is stupid or that you should not want it. I am only here to make sure you are paying for it with your eyes wide open, instead of assuming the monthly payment on the sticker is the full price of admission. I have watched this exact pattern play out with real people in my own life. Friends who are brilliant with money in every other area of their life, disciplined savers, careful investors, and then they walk onto a car lot and the discipline just quietly disappears because the dealership is not selling them a car anymore, they are selling them a feeling, wrapped around a monthly number small enough to feel harmless. So let's go back to Jake and Emily one final time, 3 years down the road, standing in their driveways. Jake walks into the dealership to turn in his RAV4 hybrid. Clean car, low miles, he stayed well under his mileage limit, so at least he avoided those penalty fees. He hands over the keys. $17,184 spent over 3 years, and he drives home in an Uber to start shopping for his next lease, right back at square one, staring down another monthly payment on another brand new car. Emily, meanwhile, lists her RAV4 hybrid for sale. Within 2 weeks, she has a buyer at $26,126. She deposits that check, and when she adds it all up, her true out-of-pocket cost for 3 years of driving that same car comes out to $8,050. She has thousands of dollars sitting in the bank that Jake simply does not have, purely because of which piece of paper she signed on that Saturday afternoon 3 years earlier. Same car, same starting point, same 3 years, two completely different financial outcomes. And now you understand exactly why. Here is what I want you to walk away with today. Leasing is not a scam and buying is not automatically a hero. But for most people and most cars, it is more financially prudent to buy because ownership lets you capture the market resale value at the end, instead of handing that value back to a dealership that already priced it into your payment from day one. The next time you're staring at a monthly payment on a piece of paper, do not just ask yourself whether you can afford it. Ask yourself what the total cost of ownership actually looks like once you follow the math all the way to the end, the way we just did together. Remember, dealer incentives are designed to hide the real cost of debt behind a number small enough to feel painless every month. The only real defense against that is exactly what we just did together, pulling the curtain back and looking at the whole picture, not just the monthly slice of it. If this video helped you see car payments differently, that is genuinely the entire reason I make these. Hit subscribe if you have not already, because I have a lot more of these deep dives coming, breaking down the real math behind the financial decisions we are all told to just accept at face value. Drop a comment and let me know, are you team lease or team buy, and did these numbers change your mind? I read every single one. I am David Marshall, and I will see you in the next one.